Welcome to this Macmillan ELT Upgraders Small Talk. My name is John Craft and I am the Professional Development Manager for Macmillan Education Asia. In this small talk, we're going to have a look at to CLIL or not to CLIL, a framework for success. So we're going to be having a look at how we can skill up your students through CLIL through a framework. And I'm going to put forward my case for teaching CLIL, especially in the young learners classroom. So firstly, we're going to define what CLIL is, its relevance, but also some of the challenges. After, we'll have a look at a framework, how we can go about teaching CLIL in our young learner classrooms. So what is CLIL? So CLIL stands for Content and Language Integrated Learning. So we're teaching content through subjects, maths, science, history, geography, social studies and art, but we're also learning language at the same time. Now before we go any further, it's important to identify some key challenges of CLIL teaching around the world. I think governments and ministries of education in different countries around the world are recognizing the importance of CLIL and the importance it can play in the language learning process. But I think there is still a lot of confusion about how to go about teaching CLIL. Also about the extra responsibility for language learning teachers in teaching CLIL. Teachers are already busy and sometimes they think, oh, we shouldn't have to be teaching CLIL as well as language. And as a result, there's also a shortage of CLIL trained teachers. So today we're going to have a look at how we can also overcome a lot of those challenges. So as I mentioned, CLIL stands for Content and Language Integrated Learning. So it is a dual-focused educational approach, and an additional language is used here for teaching not only the language but also the content. We mentioned all those subjects. So how is CLIL being used around the world? Here are a few examples. So for example, in Malaysia, where it's a very multilingual, bilingual society, they are teaching maths, or have been teaching maths and science through the English medium. In Norway, students are using German as a medium of instruction to teach art. Even in Japan, they're using English to teach geography as a subject. And even in Australia now, students are learning maths through the Chinese language. Wow, that sounds tough. A few key facts about CLIL. So CLIL is a methodology which was founded in 1994. It is an approach for teaching both the subject and the language. And it's a great way for students to apply their new skills. Likewise, it seems a good method to enhance the learning of a language, and at the same time we can expand the students' knowledge of the world through these CLIL lessons. And we're going to have a look today at how we can do that. So we're going to examine how we can teach CLIL in the language learning process, especially at the young learner stage. But before we do that, I just want to return to some of those key challenges that we mentioned at the start. So a little bit of confusion about how to go about teaching CLIL, the extra responsibility for teachers. So I'm going to show you in this small talk both a framework for success for CLIL, but also an easy step-by-step process for teachers that you can follow for any CLIL lesson. So let's start with a framework for success. And we're going to have a look today at a 4Cs framework. Not the 21st century skills 4Cs, but the CLIL 4Cs. So standing for content, culture, communication, and cognition. Okay? And by using this framework, we can balance language skills and subject knowledge. So the framework emphasizes, particularly in the communication strand, the language of learning, for learning, and through learning. And we're going to see how we can do that today. For cognition, okay, that relates to the process of thinking, but also building on existing knowledge and thoughts that the students have. Content refers to the learner constructing their own knowledge and developing their skills. And culture refers to two elements. It can be a greater intercultural awareness, learning more about the world, different countries and cultures, but also building the self-confidence of students to work within a language learning community, working with groups in a classroom, again in a language learning community or culture. And today we're going to have a look at how we can integrate all those different 4Cs of that framework effectively into a step-by-step process. At the same time, we're going to also help overcome such an issue that teachers might have. Teachers might say, what about me? What am I supposed to do for a 60-minute lesson on this? How do I go about that? I'm a language learning teacher, not a CLIL teacher. So we're going to help solve that problem today. To solve that problem, I have a solution for you, a 4-step CLIL process. So firstly, processing the text. Secondly, identification and organization of knowledge. Thirdly, language identification. And fourthly, tasks for students. And we'll see that this process can be a little bit flexible. It doesn't have to be in that order prescribed. At the same time, we'll have a look at that process, but I'll also be showing you how those 4Cs framework can integrate into that process. So we're going to have a look at an example CLIL lesson from Story Central, a primary course book series from Macmillan Education. So firstly, we're going to have a look at processing the text. Now, in CLIL lessons, reading is usually the essential skill here. But as we can see from this example, teachers, we have the option of using listening activities with those texts as well. So this is our text, and here we can develop, in that 4Cs framework, we can develop the content area, but also the cognition area, getting the students thinking a little bit more, they're processing the text, they're filling in the blanks there. So a few tips here, both for reading and for listening, if you choose to do listening. So for reading, we can help even young learners start building up key essential reading strategies, such as skimming and scanning. So here, they have to fill in the chart with the information for the text. So we can start teaching the students to highlight the key words or topic words from that chart in activity 2 first. And that will help them then to identify those words in the text, which will help them more easily find the answers that they are looking for. Nothing wrong about starting early with these key reading strategies. A second idea might be a classifying activity. Again, getting them thinking a little bit deeper along those cognition lines. So here the teacher might divide the board into, say, 6 different categories. okay, which represent the different areas of the text. So for example, on the board, the teacher might have a category for Usain Bolt. Second category might be for cheetah. Third category might be for Javier Sotomayor, a high jumper. The red kangaroo, Michael Phelps, okay, and the penguin. So 6 different categories on the board. The teacher then gives the students strips of paper with the facts, the key facts from the text, and then the students have to come up and paste those facts in the correct category, okay, which correspond or connect to the different individual athletes or animals, okay, getting them thinking. So you can do that as a whole class activity, or they could do it in individual groups. Likewise, for processing the text, you could also approach this as a listening, if you wanted to. As a little tip there for teachers, if you're looking at a CLIL each unit, maybe one unit you might want to do some reading activities, the next unit you might want to do listening activities, just to keep things fresh. So in terms of listening ideas, you could have, for example, here, listen and fill in the table. You could also listen. The teacher could pause the audio and ask the students comprehension questions to check their understanding. Likewise, here is another menu of different activities that you could use for reading and listening to develop those skills. So for example, we have here a listen or read and tick activity, or maybe a listen and reorder the information activity, or maybe a read and match, or a listen and classify, or a read and correct the sentences. All different activities you can use at that processing stage. Again, important to note here, these are not special activities for CLIL. These are the same activities that teachers would be using in normal general English language learning classrooms. The second part of the process is language identification. So it's important to note here with CLIL, CLIL follows very much a lexical approach. So it's all about recycling, reviewing language in, for example, the context of a reading text. So maybe they have already learned key vocab, key grammar in the unit, and the CLIL lesson is a chance to review, recycle that language. So here we want the students not to teach them the grammar directly again, but we just want them to notice, okay, or learn implicitly or incidentally. So they're noticing these chunks of language, maybe the grammar from the unit in the text. Again, here we're tapping into the content part of that 4 C's framework, developing key skills here, but also on the communication side as well. So we're learning language here through the text here, or through the learning. So for example, we could get the students to underline or circle the key grammar as a way of noticing that language in the text. Okay, so here again, they could go through and underline the key grammar. For example, he is good at jumping, he is good at swimming, etc. The third part of the process is the identification and organization of knowledge. And this one can involve all of those 4 C's in that framework. So we're going to have a look at this Find Out More section on this CLIL page. And this section also helps students develop their information literacy. Okay, so this is a new literacy that helps students be a little bit more independent about researching information, maybe on the internet, to build up those kind of skills that are so valuable in the modern digital age. So to help us here, to help us organize that information, we're going to have a look at something called a CLIL Planner, okay, to help students organize that information. And importantly, this is a ready-made task for teachers. The teachers don't have to prepare anything here. It saves you guys a lot of time. So this is an example of a CLIL Planner. So the task here is for the students to fill in this chart with the different speeds of different animals, okay? So here already we have Usain Bolt and his speed compared to the speed of a cheetah. So the students can go away and research either as part of their homework or maybe in the computer lab, or if you've got all the digital equipment in the classroom, you can use iPads, they can use search engines there. So actually they're researching, they're building up their independent research skills, but we're also helping them effectively use the correct search engines and things like that to really build up their information literacy skills. So again, they can go away, find different animals and their speeds and complete this chart, either individually or maybe you can do it as a group. It's a great way of organizing their knowledge, but also developing all those extra information literacy skills, research skills as well. And this one can really build that language learning community or culture that we talked about. So here's a completed version of what it might look like with different animals there and I think different transports as well that the students can research to help them fill in that chart. Alternatively, a nice activity for teachers is you could divide the class into different groups and give each group one particular animal and its speed. Okay, but the rest of their chart is blank. So they then have to walk around the classroom, mingle around, talking to other groups to collect the information about other animals, which the other groups have, in order to fill in that chart. Okay, great way of building that culture, that community in the classroom. But again, also building up their cognition, thinking skills, communication skills, but also their content skills, building on their existing 4 skills or the integration of 4 skills there. So that's an example of a CLIL planner which you can use to help organize the information. And with the Story Central series, you actually have a CLIL planner for each unit. And you can check out an example or some demo CLIL planners at the link there below. Now the final part of that process is the tasks for the students. Again, this is building on the communication, the culture and the content areas of that 4 C's framework. And again here, the focus here for CLIL lessons is fluency, getting the students speaking, okay, about the topic or about the content subject area. And here we're going to have a look at an example activity or task. So here we have a class vote. Okay, so here the students as a class have to vote on whether they think animals or humans are better athletes. Which ones are better athletes? Based on maybe the information that they collected from their CLIL planner. And a few ideas here about how you might approach the class vote activity. So firstly, you could get the students to think individually first. Always a good skill to develop just develop their individual thinking skills about which one they think are better athletes. Once they have made up their own minds, the students could either maybe raise their hands to vote, or even to create more suspense or maybe more motivation with this activity, you could have like a secret vote, and then the teacher could build up the suspense in the classroom as to the result of that vote. So the teacher could then write the results up on the board and then elicit the result from the students. So that was an example of a very easy step-by-step process that you can use for CLIL lessons. Again, it also integrated those 4 C's framework element as well. And I hope this has shown you how we can overcome all those challenges and issues that we mentioned at the start, particularly how we can move from theory to practice, how teachers don't actually have to be doing anything different. They can still keep to the same kind of activities they use for learning a language, okay? And in this case, it's not necessary to be trained as a CLIL teacher, because you can follow this step-by-step process. So again, we saw how that 4 C's framework can be integrated within that 4-step process for teachers. For more information about CLIL, and particularly how it's used in the Story Central series, do check out this website link here, which will take you through to our Macmillan Young Learners website, where you can download some example CLIL lessons and CLIL planners. Also, check out the handout below. Okay, you can download a PDF of all the activities that I've talked about today. I'll give you a step-by-step process, the materials that you need for each activity to get you started and moving towards the path of teaching CLIL. So in terms of to CLIL or not to CLIL, I would say yes, go out there and skill up your students with CLIL lessons. Remember, you can be reviewing, you can be learning language, but at the same time you can be developing their knowledge of content and different subjects, okay, a dual focused purpose there. And don't forget that framework for success and that step-by-step process which will make life easy for you as teachers.